Hello and welcome to this edition of Weapons and Warfare. For Straight Arrow News, I'm your host, Ryan Robertson. On tap this week, if, as the saying goes, necessity is the mother of invention, then the people behind a company called Building Momentum are the teachers of invention. See how they're focused on equipping the modern warfighter with the skills to innovate on the battlefield. And we're going across the pond to see how this tank is setting a new standard in our weapon of the week. But first, some headlines you may have missed. 1 year at the earliest. That's when the head of Naval Air Systems Command says the DoD's beleaguered V22 Osprey could be cleared to resume unrestricted flight.
I will not certify the V22 to return to unrestricted flight operations until I am satisfied that we have sufficiently addressed the issues that may affect the safety of the aircraft. Based on the data that I have today, I am expecting that this will not occur before mid-2025.
Testifying during a House Oversight Subcommittee hearing, Chebby said those involved are looking at material and non-material changes that would allow the V-22 to return to mission status without restrictions. Right now, those restrictions include only flights within 30 minutes of a suitable diver airfield. All of this is in the wake of 4 Osprey crashes in the span of 19 months, resulting in the death of 20 service members. The V-22 entered service in 1989. In 2010, the Marine Corps identified a problem with the aircraft's hard clutch. The Vice Admiral testified those problems were mitigated but won't be eliminated until an ongoing redesign of the system is complete. We've talked a lot about how American military leadership is adapting to what they see as the way future conflicts will be fought. Recently, the Marine Corps put some of those concepts to the test during what it called Distributed Aviation Operations Exercise 24, with Andros Island, Bahamas, filling the role of a remote outpost in places like the Indo-Pacific, basically conducting operations from an austere location.
When we're out here trying to train where we don't have the full maintenance support, we don't have the full capabilities, we don't have even the same working radio or computer networks, things like that we're always familiar with, I think this is good because it makes you think about how you're able to get your point across, get your message across, and eventually get ordnance to the right time and place.
It's all part of what the Marine Corps is calling force design, a restructuring plan to reshape combat power for future near-peer adversary conflicts. The goal is for the Marines to modernize equipment, work closer with the Navy, and become more of a light strike force. And finally, the Air and Space Forces entered the AI chat space. For obvious reasons, military leadership doesn't want official business done with commercially available AI services. Think ChatGPT. Now they have their own. The Air Force Research Laboratory recently launched non-classified Internet Protocol Generative Pre-Training Transformer, or, thankfully, Nipper GPT. It's an artificial intelligence chatbot that can interact in a human-like manner, helping airmen and guardians with communications, task completion, and online coding on a secure system. This is not a military first. The Navy and DoD already have similar services. If you've been in the workforce long enough, odds are you took some on-the-job training at some point. Maybe your company switched to a new software program, or you were promoted and needed new skills. You probably spent time with colleagues in the same boat as you, so you can all go back to your jobs with a little more knowledge and know-how than you had before, and maybe some more confidence too. In the world of special operations, though, where on-the-job training is a constant, some of the best technologies and the insights in how to best use them don't always make it to the front lines. And that's where Building Momentum comes in. It's a small business with a big idea. Train tip-of-the-spear operators in how to use top-of-the-line tech in the most out-of-the-way places. U.S. General John Pershing, the commander of U.S. Expeditionary Forces in Europe during World War I, said infantry wins battles. Logistics wins wars. In a military sense, logistics is basically getting the right people and equipment in the right place at the right time. and making sure both work when they arrive. But in the world of special operations, where operators are often deployed in small teams, covertly into hostile foreign territories, it's not like you can just radio HQ for more supplies. In those situations, it's a race to the clever.
We want them to be able to go into the, Radio Shack of Morocco and figure that stuff out.
As the CEO and co-founder of Building Momentum, it's Brad Halsey's job to make sure his clients can not just run the race, but win it. He was a special operator in the Navy and served in Iraq before being injured.
That surgery went bad, and so I was a disabled veteran. And so after that, I was like, you know what, I want to use my brains instead of my broken body to make a living.
So he did. Halsey worked for research institutes and think tanks, developing what he says were some amazing technologies.
And so this was, post September 11th. We were in Iraq, we were in Afghanistan, and I was just really frustrated that all the technologies I was working on for DARPA, for the agency, for all these organizations, none of that was actually going anywhere. It was just going on to the Raiders of the Lost Ark, like warehouse shelves.
In 2008, Halsey spent a year in Iraq, learning firsthand what soldiers fighting on the edge needed to win.
I had a lab in Baghdad that I made a lot of technology and solutions from, but I pushed out all across the country.
From its humble beginnings in Baghdad, Building Momentum is now at the forefront of giving Special Operations Forces the unique on-the-job training they need to complete covert missions in the modern world. Things like 3D printing a spare part in the field or building aerial drones with sticks.
Looking at your client list, SOCOM, JSOC, Rangers, EOD, Space Force, Airborne. You are helping to train at the edge. You're helping to equip folks at the edge.
Yeah, so to date, we've trained almost 10,000, service members across every organization except for Coast Guard, because you guys know what you did. Because it's just we haven't stumbled across that yet. And Ukraine is sort of validating all the stuff that we've been doing for almost 10 years now.
Stuff like prototyping new designs on the fly, using what's available at the moment.
How do you go out onto the economy and build a drone in Thailand? How do you do this stuff with what you have around you? What can you resource and source very fast to make that solution?
Building Momentum offers a number of different IBCs for its clients, or innovation boot camps. The initial week-long course is more of an introduction to things like 3D printing, robotics, circuitry, coding. From there, Building Momentum tailors the instruction to the clients.
We'll listen to what they're saying. Like recently, we just did autonomous boats out in Japan because the Marine Corps saw what the Ukrainians were doing. They saw how the South China Sea is a really important thing to understand right now, and so we showed them how to build these 12-foot boats that autonomously go out and drop sensors off and come back to shore all on their own right.
And in my opinion, that's where Building Momentum shines. Is that tailoring of the course.
Chris Sargent is a newly retired U.S. Marine. He just got out with 20 years and 2 days. He spent the last part of his service doing a fellowship with Building Momentum. He says one of the best things the company does for its clients is challenging not just how they approach a problem, but their entire thought process around it.
As a Marine, especially in, the more complicated MOSs like explosive ordnance disposal, which I'm an EOD tech by trade, or in the special operations community, MARSOC, Rangers, Green Berets. I came from MARSOC. Failure is looked at very negatively, right? So if you fail, you failed, right? Like get in the back of the line, you can try again later, right? Them enabling you to fail fast and learn from it and view it as a positive thing, in my opinion, is huge.
Chris says it's his hope that this way of thinking, of trying new solutions and failing fast, permeates into the ranks of the regular military, at least to a certain extent. Chris and Brad both say if the concepts Building Momentum teaches could be more ingrained into the institutional knowledge of our military as a whole, it wouldn't just benefit special operators, but the entire fighting force.
Let's imagine we push everything out to the right and we're going into some crazy, a post-apocalyptic thing or whatever, it's still going to be all these clever solutions that people will be doing, because all the big toys will be broken, all the big things will be done, all the satellites will be down, or name a thing, name some horrible thing. And now it's going to be a race to the clever. It's always going to be a race to the clever. And technology has made it so accessible.
While Building Momentum may be a veteran-owned small business that works with some of the most elite warriors on the planet, they do corporate events too. And there are some boot camps coming up this summer and fall where individuals can take part by buying a seat in the class as well. Might just have to schedule a team building retreat for the guys here at the show.
Serving you clarity through context, our mission at SAN is to deliver the news straight down the middle. We're different from mainstream media because we spotlight distorted headlines and show you how to do it too. Discover stories that right and left-leaning outlets are choosing not to cover by using our Media Mist tool. Download the SAN app and turn on notifications to have straight facts delivered right to your phone or tablet, and get straight facts anytime at SAN.com.
For our weapon of the week, we are heading across the Atlantic to check out the British Army's Challenger 3 battle tank, a bully that's setting some new standards for tank warfare. Like its name implies, the Challenger 3 is the next evolution of the Challenger 2 main battle tank that the Brits have been using since 1998. With that evolution comes some significant upgrades, notably in firepower. More on that in a moment, but first, here are some pertinent details. It weighs 66 tons and it's built for a crew of 4. The Challenger 3 is made by Rheinmetall BAE Systems Land, yes, that is a mouthful, in Telford, England. The British Army is due to receive 8 prototypes and eventually field a fleet of 147 tanks. The Challenger 3 comes equipped with an all-new turret, an improved hull, and improved armor. Of course, the main feature is the 120mm L55A1 smoothbore high-pressure gun. Very impressive sounding, but what does it all mean? Well, when paired with the latest 120mm DM73 ammunition, the Challenger 3 now checks in with an engagement range of up to 5,000 meters. For those of us not on the metric system, that's a little more than 3 miles, a stat that's not lost on the troops that will be trained to take it into combat if the need arises.
In terms of lethality, we're pairing the latest 120mm smoothbore gun, high-pressure gun, and we're pairing that with the most lethal ammunition available. So this will be one of the most lethal tanks in Europe. All of this is capped off with a new set of sighting systems that allows us to direct that lethality with much greater precision, 24 hours a day, and overall the whole capability is a total step change to what we currently have with Challenger 2.
So what can people on the business end of this beast expect? The Challenger 3 can fire the latest armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, discarding sabot rounds, high-explosive anti-tank rounds, and programmable air-burst munitions. That versatility allows crews to engage a wide variety of targets. And if you're thinking you want one for weekend outings with the boys, better start saving now. Well equipped, it's going to cost you a cool $5 million per. In this week's CommCheck, we've got an update on a company we featured previously on Weapons and Warfare, Episci. In March, they were part of our debrief on AI pilots and their growing role in every branch's battle plans for future conflicts. In May, their autonomy algorithms were on board the X-62A Vista, a modified F-16D that the Secretary of the Air Force, Frank Kendall, took a ride in. He wanted to experience for himself an aircraft that uses machine learning and specialized software to fly autonomously. Which brings us to earlier this month when we received battling press releases announcing Episci is being acquired by Merlin, another developer of autonomous flight technology. The Boston-based Merlin says the acquisition will solidify its position as a leader in the autonomous aviation industry. No word yet on how much Merlin is paying to acquire Episci or if the California-based company will continue to operate under the same name.
All opinions expressed in this segment are solely the opinions of the contributors.
Time now for this week's wrap, and this one hits a little closer to home because it deals with a man who called himself a journalist. Let me set the stage a little bit. In early June, Israeli special forces rescued 4 Israeli hostages in Gaza, 3 men and 1 woman. They were taken hostage by Hamas back on October 7th and held for months, not in tunnels or terrorist strongholds, but in the homes of some people in Gaza. These families were keeping hostages for months, mere feet from where their kids slept. And by all available accounts so far, the families willingly held the hostages. It doesn't look like they were forced. One of those families is the Al-Jamals. The patriarch, Ahmad, was a local physician and prominent member of the community. His son, Abdullah, a supposed journalist for Palestinian media, and Ahmad's brother, a lawyer for the government in Gaza, which is Hamas. Ahmad and Abdullah were killed in the rescue operation, along with Abdullah's wife, a phlebotomist at a local health clinic. Based on the evidence coming out, Ahmad and Abdullah al-Jamal were liars, terrorists, and professional failures. As a medical doctor, Ahmad took an oath to first do no harm. As a journalist, Abdullah's job was to reveal truth, not hide people. He could have used his position to tell fellow Palestinians Hamas is a terrorist organization hell-bent on carrying out a genocide, even if it means thousands of Palestinians will die and their homes will be destroyed. But Abdullah was not a journalist. At some point, he crossed the line, and now he's dead. He's dead because when he crossed that line, he stopped being a journalist and became a terrorist, willing to use violence against innocent people to enact change. He was complicit in the murder, rape, kidnapping, and torture of innocent people. But there will still be those in this world who look at people like Abdullah Jamal and will equate his actions with those of all journalists, paint him as an example of why all journalists should not be trusted. At the time I'm recording this wrap, the story is fairly new, but I can just imagine how it's going to be picked up and portrayed on social media sites around the world. So let me go on the record now and say Abdullah al-Jamal was not a journalist, despite him identifying as one. Abdullah al-Jamal was a terrorist. Journalists report factual information within context and without bias. Period. Anything else is not journalism, and anyone claiming to be a journalist while violating these principles is not what they claim to be. Period. I hope that helps clear up some confusion, hopefully before it starts. For senior producer Brett Baker, video editor Brian Spencer, and graphics designer Dakota Patillo, I'm Ryan Robertson with Straight Arrow News, signing off.